For a while. So it was this really interesting process of literally going through that dark night, that dark shadow of the soul, to come out the other side, and having experienced literal death of sorts.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Optimum Human Podcast. My name is Brian McKay.
We should have just kept the old one.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Sorry, did too much editing.
No, you don't even need to edit. It was great. Plus,
This is Claude Petroulis arguing with me. We host the Optimum Human Podcast. Today's guest is Amanda Patti. Amanda, I apologize, and I'm grateful you are so far still on the call. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And there's no need to apologize. I'm enjoying myself and having a blast laughing with both of you. So it's warm and welcome.
Yeah, right.
So Brian, the second introduction for Amanda. Do you wanna do that again?
Amanda, I'm just gonna let you do it. You don't need an introduction, so I'm gonna let you do it. Who are you, and what do you do?
What a hard worker you are, Brian.
Right. Delegation is a key skill to have.
It is.
It is, for sure. So I am Amanda Patti. I am a personal freedom and human potential mentor, as well as a transformation coach. I'm the founder of the Radical RAWthenticity Program, where I help you release your limiting beliefs so you can reclaim your personal power and live an extraordinary life.
I feel like you said Rawthenticity way better than Brian did.
I did.
So
she did.
Yeah, I want to give you big ups to that. So Amanda, can you tell us about your journey? Like what got you into the business?
Oh goodness, that is a fantastic question.
You're welcome.
Pretty much my entire life got me into this business. My holistic journey started back when I was in high school, and that was my first exposure into the holistic realm. And as a student of the Alexander technique, I was a musician at the time and was experiencing carpal tunnel-like syndrome. And my doctors were like, oh, well, we should talk surgery. And it's like I'm a junior in high school. And it's like, what, are you kidding me?
Good old doctors.
Exactly. So I met this amazing woman. She's known as the wrist lady. And that was my first real introduction into, I guess, holistic healthcare, as well as the connection between mind, body, and spirit, and how if we truly get out of our own way, our body has the potential to heal itself. And from there, a bunch of interesting life experiences with trying to figure out, who am I, what am I supposed to be doing, led me to studying a variety of different things, everything from biology to massage and yoga. And one of the biggest, I guess, learning experiences that I had was marrying somebody who I knew I shouldn't have married. My intuition was very clear, like, do not do this. But I decided, well, you know what? I'm not going to listen to myself. This is just fear. This is cold feet. I'm going to turn that part of my mind and body off. And basically what I wound up doing was turning my back on myself, which, of course, ultimately did not work out too well. I did wind up divorced, 11, 12 years ago now. I'm a single mom of 2 boys. And that journey of really healing myself from not listening to myself was the real big leap into kind of who I am today, why I do what it is that I do. And then another piece to that is I was in a car accident, 5 or 6 years ago now. It was a bologna and a 4-car sandwich. We were in by a dump truck.
Oh, wow.
And I had experienced soft tissue injury and damage to my back and neck, and went from being this really active person who was constantly moving all the time. I was studying yoga 5-6 times a week, doing day-long and weekend-long intensives, and all of a sudden I couldn't do anything. Couldn't roll over without having to brace my entire core in order to move. And I saw several specialists, and they pretty much came out and said, you know what, we're astounded that you can walk. Your body's so dysfunctional, you should be sitting in a wheelchair right now. And you should give up everything that you're doing.
Huh.
And just focus on daily living. And I was like, well, that's just, spirit crushing. Hell no, I'm not going to do that. I'll just keep searching until I find somebody who can show me what it is I need to see. Mm-hmm. And through that journey, I met up with an amazing Czech practitioner down in New Jersey, and within one visit, my pain had decreased by 80%.
Nice. Who is that, may I ask?
That's John Staphos.
Okay.
Mm. And what sort of things do you think helped you? Like anything particular that you can recall? Because in one visit, that's huge.
It was huge. It was huge. One of it was partly just his approach to listening to the body. Mm. But the biggest piece for me was diving into and exploring emotional healing and emotional health, and realizing that, yes, I have this physical injury to my body. However, there's a much bigger story behind that. Mm. So it's a process for me to really begin to unravel all of the limiting beliefs and stories that I was holding into myself as to why I wasn't good enough, why I wasn't smart enough, why I wasn't worthy, and why I deserved to be punished for having not listened to myself all of these years. It was an opportunity for me to really peel back the layers and ask myself, geez, is this true?
Yeah, getting at those self-limitations is huge and very difficult, but that's amazing.
Yeah. Now, I'm projecting my own thing onto this, but
probably.
I do tend to do that. But was there a lot of forgiveness that you needed to give yourself through, for not listening to yourself? I know that's something that I've struggled with through my journey is really not listening to myself.
Yeah, that was and has been one of the biggest pieces, is forgiving myself. And a few years back, I remember having a conversation with JP, and one of the things that I had come out and said was like, it's easy for us to forgive others, but being able to forgive ourselves and have compassion for ourselves is one of the most challenging things for us to do.
It's true.
Is there's something that kind of has catalyzed that for you, a particular, thing, for lack of a better word? I'm quite the wordsmith, don't you know?
It's that sub 50 IQ.
Yeah, right.
Oh, goodness. It's something in particular catalyzed that. Yeah, I would say, well, am I allowed to swear on this?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Why not?
Yeah, basically I get tired of sitting in my own shit.
That does seem uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Eventually, I think all of us in our own healing journeys, eventually we reach a point where we're tired of being in pain, and we're tired of living life the way that we've been living it. And there was an opportunity for me to really ask myself, like, what is one of the biggest things that's holding me back? And for me in that journey and really asking myself and diving in, it's like, gosh, parts of me really hate myself. And how can I begin to forgive myself and to begin to forgive that, maybe I made decisions that weren't quote unquote right in massive quotations, but it's like, look at the woman that I've become because of these opportunities to grow.
Big time. All sorts of, how do I put it? We learn not from our successes usually, it's from our failures and through our difficulties, and that's how we grow. So, I find people who have been very sheltered tend to not have very thick skin in the world. So I think all the shit that we've gone through helps us become better people.
For sure. Absolutely.
And we have to appreciate it. And that's exactly what you were saying. If you don't appreciate it, if you don't look at your journey as being like, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't have gone through that horrible thing, then it takes a little bit of the pressure off.
It does, for sure. And I like to see a lot of it, too, is like turning our mess into our message.
I like that. That might be the title of this podcast. Who knows?
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
I do know you have done some training with the Czech Institute.
Yes.
So do you want to explain kind of why you did that and what you got from it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I would say I did that mainly because I was guided to, by some higher force, maybe through my intuition, and primarily through my own healing journey. Definitely with, recovering from the car accident and then looking at my emotional stuff. And having worked with John down in New Jersey, he was the first Czech practitioner that I met, and I was already thinking about Czech stuff. And then, actually receiving work from a Czech practitioner, I was like, oh, wow, here's somebody who really gets how the entire body integrates and works together as a whole and doesn't happen to discount any part of it. You see, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects to how everything interrelates with one another and how if we're not balanced in any one particular area it can throw off the whole. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, oh, this is a hell yes. So after that, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and dive in and explore the HLC world. And it was really interesting having taken that course. And I found that, yes, I did learn some things through the course. However, for me, more of what it did was already confirm things that I knew. Mm-hmm. And through my own personal growth and journey and exploration. So it was almost self-validating in some ways.
Right on.
If I could be a little bit egoic there.
I mean, honestly, I think that's not always a bad thing because we tend to second guess ourselves, and when we can get that external validation on what we already think or we already know, it can actually strengthen our ability to work both with ourselves and our clients.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And me personally, I don't think there's any egoicness. Yeah, I'm making up words here. That's the 49. Said 49 IQ today.
You know what? I think you should copyright that egoicness.
Yeah.
Make a book out of it and then YouTube channel, and you're set.
Yes.
There we go.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna hire you to help me make that into reality.
I'm sure we could do that. It would be quite an interesting process.
I'm sure it would be. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we just broke the podcast into a screeching halt. I don't even know if you were asking a question, Brian.
I was not.
Okay.
It was more of a comment than a question.
A comment. All right. So I want to follow up on the educational stuff. So
with my lack of education.
Well, no, you've got decent education. I just think your
my application,
your integration and application of brain cells, may. Oh, poor Brian. I feel bad for ripping on him today. It's a slow day for. He didn't wear his helmet yesterday. And
no.
He bumped his noggin. Yeah. Anyway.
Good God.
Anyway,
all right, we're gonna have to start this thing over one more time.
Yeah, exactly. This time, let's just have Amanda do the talking.
Right, Amanda, can you monologue for an hour?
Yeah, we'll just give you the questions. You just talk, and it'll all be good. But back to education. Were there courses you'd taken before that, or was this just reading, researching?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Before Czech, what did I do? I studied massage therapy, yoga. I'm a yoga teacher as well. I have a background in biology. And then, I'm trying to think. Then I believe I dove into neurokinetic therapy and certified through level 2 in that.
Now,
then
what exactly is neurokinetic therapy?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And I say that because my approach and understanding of that is vastly different than the majority of the NKT world. And I realize I may be putting myself in the hot seat saying this on a podcast, but, that's totally fine.
Beautiful. That is authentic for sure.
Authentic.
It is really, really authentic. So
I appreciate that.
Is that similar to MAT, or am I completely off here?
It is similar to MAT and slightly different to MAT. So it's a means of essentially muscle testing certain patterns in the body to determine areas of function and or dysfunction, and then correct those certain patterns within the body. And while I can see how it has certain benefits, there's another piece to it, or several pieces to it, that I found were really missing from the entire process. And, one of them is the nutritional basis. Like, if we eat shit, then it's going to affect how our body responds, particularly if we have inflammation in our gut.
What?
Claude, I think it's time to go back to HLC 1 one more time there, buddy.
I need to start at HLC 0.5.
Right.
No, it's true, though. What she says is true, folks.
Yeah, and
you are what you eat.
We are what we eat. We also are what we think. So that's the other thing, as I know Paul says, stinking thinking. And our thinking definitely influences what we're feeling, and how our feelings influence our reality. So if we're thinking shit all the time, well, we're going to wind up feeling like shit all the time because, basically we're kind of parasitizing ourselves, if that's even a word. Heck, I don't know.
It is now. I think we're just making. I love this that we're just making up words tonight.
This is George W. Bush power out right here. The making up words. You'd be proud of us right now.
Oh, we got that good education.
I get it. I'll learn you real good, boy. Oh, God.
Yeah, and the other big piece to it, for me, is definitely the emotional and energetic side to it. And that largely is something that I did not see in the NKT world. And in my experience practicing with clients using NKT, it's like I would basically test 3 patterns. That was my magic number. If you test 3 patterns and you quote unquote fail 3 patterns, then to me it's like, okay, this is not some sort of programming issue. It's deeper than that. It's either emotional or energetic or food based. And a lot of times I would sit down and either dive into kind of emotional worlds and limiting beliefs or do some energetic based work. And wouldn't you know, everything was resolved. So
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works. We tend to most practitioners tend to be pretty left-brained and very, want to work strictly with the body and, being able to cover, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and then the, energetic or spiritual is usually, combining that is what usually gets the results.
But Brian, you got to do bicep curls, man. That's why you're there in the gym. All
Just
that other
because
stuff.
I do doesn't mean everyone else does.
That's true. It doesn't mean everybody else should.
That's good.
There we go.
There's a word we should remove from our vocabulary. Or could excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah.
Weird.
48. It's declining.
What happens when you get to 0? Do you just implode, or?
I'm not sure yet.
Oh man, you just kind of fold into yourself.
Yeah, I may just become like a black hole.
Or like an amoeba or something. You just just go around absorbing stuff. Oh, anyway. Okay, so with NKT, you would do the muscle testing, then you would figure out what's going on emotionally, energetically, if you needed to investigate like that. Were there any cases that would present as purely physical, and then all of a sudden, some emotional stuff started coming in? Did you notice with clients that if they're having a rough time, let's say they've got something going on, they're going through a divorce, all of a sudden, would all of a sudden their patterns change?
Oh, absolutely. And there's There's one woman I work with, and you asking that really invites me to think of her, where she had experienced a pretty significant leg injury several years beforehand. She has like plates and screws in her leg now, and we were diving into and exploring patterns that weren't really related to that. And then one day she had come in, and for whatever reason I was drawn to her leg, because everything was just blown out and I was just intuitively drawn there. And I forget what question I asked her, but I asked her a question and she started crying. She's like, the anniversary of my accident is like 2 days away.
Holy shit.
Or something like that. Yeah. So just having that kind of traumatic imprint on that day was throwing off her entire system.
That's like, just goes to show humans are very, I don't want to say fragile creatures, because at the same time we're very resilient, but we're very susceptible.
Yeah, and a lot of times I like to use the word complex. We're simple, but we're complex.
Definitely.
Well,
I know.
I don't know about me, but
I was just about to make a comment, Brian.
I beat you to it. See, you have no power over me.
I think you're back up to 49 now. So, Amanda, I wanted to ask a question I'd actually heard on Tim Ferriss's podcast, because I find it's a great place for questions, and I'm not above stealing things. So
I appreciate your authenticity and willing to admit that.
I appreciate the fact that you are, a couple hundred miles away.
So at least I credit where I stole things from.
Right.
So, all right. So it goes. Has there been any failure in your life that has led to a success or a growth? Like, has there been anything that you've kind of like screwed up on, or felt like you screwed up on, and then it opened up doors?
Yeah, my divorce. Well, my marriage.
Wow. So do you want to get into that, or should we? I mean, if you want to talk about it, we can. I really want to talk about men's rights eventually, but
yeah, we can definitely dive into that as well. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because that can definitely tie into that, and I can weave those two categories together very well and very easily.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, so as I had mentioned in one of the takes on the podcast about my story.
Who knows which one anymore?
Right.
Yeah, I had lost count. That's totally fine. Yeah, so I made the decision as a young, 21-year-old woman, 3 weeks before my 22nd birthday, to marry a man who I knew I did not love. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that just set up the entire relationship for failure, not for success. Because how can we really be successful in relationship with somebody when we don't love them? And at that stage, I didn't know what love was. I thought I knew what love was.
Cut you off, but did you, I know it's hard to reflect back quite a few years here, but did you feel like you loved yourself at that point?
That's a great question. I would say no.
It is a really good question, Claude.
Yeah, because that's just one of the patterns I've noticed is people who don't love themselves and they jump into a relationship, and it's just adds extra, how do I put it, ingredients into the relationship that might not necessarily be helpful. So I mean that's one aspect, and then kind of hopping into it, and then I think marriage is silly anyway. No, I'm joking, but it's not for everyone, especially at certain times in their life. But please continue.
You said like a true single guy.
Hey, you know what? I got to be bitter about something. So.
Yeah. So I mean, in my opinion, it was like the relationship was somewhat doomed from the get-go, from all that, from my not really being in a place of loving myself, from my having married the rebound guy, basically, and just not really knowing who I was at that point in time. Like I said, I was 21, and I hadn't really discovered out, what am I here for? What do I want to do? Who am I? Mm-hmm. And, it was very much a time where I got married, and it was up in Alaska. So I live in the Boston area now, and I had met him at Eastern Mountain Sports, where I was working at the time, and I decided, you know what, heck, I'm young, I'm free, I'm going to move to Alaska with you. So,
like, you couldn't choose somebody in Florida, or like?
No, I had to choose somebody who enjoyed living in Denali National Park, which was fantastic. I mean, that was an amazing experience there. Being able to see grizzly bears and moose and wolverines, northern lights, it was absolutely incredible. And if anybody has an opportunity to visit during the summer, I would highly recommend it. Winter is another thing. You have to like the cold.
In the
You
dark.
have to hate yourself.
in some ways, it's a form of punishment, being up in areas where it can reach 50 below zero and it's light for like 2 hours a day.
Yeah, not my idea of fun, but if you're the masochistic type, more power to you.
Right.
But sorry, I just wanted to interject and cut you off again, because that's what I'm really good at doing. But picking a partner that isn't in line with your values, or that's going to be in line with your values, which is difficult for a lot of people to kind of learn, because you grow as a person, and if this person doesn't grow in the same way, it generally won't work out. So anyway, you're up in Alaska.
Yeah, so I was up in Alaska, and gosh, I'm trying to think. Winter by myself. I was living in a cabin in Fairbanks with no running water. And our first winter up there, my then husband decided he was going to work on the North Slope, which meant that he would be gone 3 weeks out of the month and home for 1 week in the month. So here I was up in Alaska, 5,000 miles from home, didn't really know anybody in the area yet. And now I'm living in a cabin with no running water in the middle of nowhere by myself.
Paradise.
It was an interesting experience because I had to grow up, and I had to grow up fast, and I had to grow into who I was.
Yeah, I was going to say that would give you a lot of opportunity for introspection, for sure.
It did give me a lot of opportunity for introspection, and it really gave me an opportunity to step up and to step into who I had been becoming and kind of revealing who I am. And I did wind up having my first son, Wesley, up there, and at that point in time, our marriage was somewhat on the rocks and stuff, and I was like, well, maybe it's just time to go home. So we wound up moving back here, and I got pregnant with my second son, Seamus. And when I was pregnant, my ex said, you don't seem really happy. Maybe we should get a divorce. And at the time, I was like, well, geez, heck, I'm so emotional and hormonal right now, I don't know what I want. I'm not capable of making any decisions beyond, what I need to do to basically care for myself and this, parasite growing inside of me.
I love it.
Wow.
I love it. You're my type of person.
I mean, I guess technically, but wow.
Yeah. I mean, technically, if we sit and we really look at, the exchange.
The definition of a parasite, yeah.
Yeah, and then, we're gifted with these amazing beings at the end of 9 months. But yeah, I was like, wow, gosh, that's an interesting thing to ask a pregnant woman.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after having had my second son, I mean, things just started deteriorating very quickly, and I was very much on this journey of having not really expressed myself to all of a sudden kind of swinging completely on the other side of the spectrum and expressing everything that I was feeling and, what I wanted in the relationship and how I felt like I wasn't being seen and heard. And it got to the point where it was really unhealthy and I would become physically ill. And that was a big wake-up call for me. I was like, this is not working for me. And there would be times in the relationship where I'd be like, are you willing to meet me? And you'd be like, no. This is how I am. Either you're going to accept me as I am or not. And I was like, well, hell. There's nothing I can do then. It takes two to tango. It takes two to make a relationship work. It takes two to make a relationship fail.
Completely right.
Yeah. So from there, I reached a point and I was like, okay, well, I have an option. I have two choices. I can choose to stay in an emotionally abusive marriage, be unhappy the rest of my life, and set that example up for my children on how a man, quote unquote, should or should not treat a woman, as well as, you know, what an example of a woman is too. Or I can choose to leave everything, leap into the unknown, and trust that everything is going to be okay. So
Turned out pretty well, I think.
It turned out really, really well, and I have no regrets about having made that jump and having leaped through that fear. And it's terrifying for people when they're in that situation and sitting and asking themselves, geez, you know, how do I do that? How do I move through fear? Because a lot of times fear is one of the biggest things that holds us back from making choices and stepping into who we truly are and living the life that we want to be living.
What's the one thing that helped you the most make that jump and limit the fear? Or, I mean, the fear would still be there, but what was one thing that you found that you were able to ground yourself to?
Oh, goodness. I would say it was the fear of leaving was less than the fear of staying in relationship.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to be super raw and authentic here, and this is something that I've only started like opening up and sharing publicly with people, but I had reached a point in the relationship where I was ready to check out and end things. Mm-hmm. I had one day where I had sat in my bedroom and I had a bottle of extra strength Tylenol with me, and I sat and I pondered killing myself. It was that bad, and that was a big wake-up call for me. And I would say the reason why I didn't do anything is because I had a feeling like, oh, if I do this, then I'm just going to be one of those people who wakes up in the hospital and they'll pump my stomach and I'm going to be in the insane ward. For a while. So it was this really interesting process of literally going through that dark night, that dark shadow of the soul, to come out the other side and having experienced literal death of sorts.
I appreciate you sharing that with us today. That's it's obviously something difficult to share publicly.
Yeah, and there has been a stigma for a long time about feeling bad. That's why when you ask somebody how are you feeling, they're usually like, oh, I'm feeling great, even though they just whatever, just horrible incident happened to them. But yeah, no, I mean, and I feel that as a practitioner and somebody who helps people, I feel that allows you to get in touch with them more, like to understand another person's thoughts and ideas.
It really, really does. We can only go as far with a client as we've gone with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that more and more to be true.
Yeah, and the other piece of it too that I thought, you said was really interesting in that question, like, how are you? And there's such a societal condition around answering that and responding, I'm fine, I'm okay, that a lot of times we don't even stop to think and consider, well, geez, am I really okay?
Exactly.
How am I feeling in this moment? Am I feeling all right? And it's like, if I'm not feeling okay, one, am I willing to admit that I'm not feeling okay? And two, am I willing to express how I really am feeling? And am I okay sharing how I'm truly feeling? Am I willing to peel back these layers and be vulnerable?
Yeah, and it allows for a ton of introspection, like, why am I'm not feeling this way? So the next time you ask somebody, how are you, or somebody asks you, how are you, just realize you can get a lot more to the story from that simple question.
Yeah, and sometimes I like to take it one step further. Instead of asking, how are you? I like to ask, how are you feeling?
Yep, that's a favorite too. It can elicit a lot of different responses. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, men's rights. I want to get into this. Are you? Because I do know there's.
And feminism.
Feminism, yes. So,
I know Claude wants to talk about feminism.
I'm not even gonna like start
Social
this. I'm just gonna give you
warriors.
those two terms, and I'm gonna let you talk about them.
Beautiful. I love it, and it's like one of my favorite things to sit and talk about with people. And first I'll come right out and say I am not a feminist. And the reason why I am not a feminist, or I guess there are a few reasons why I don't consider myself a feminist, is that a lot of the feministic movement has invited women to kind of operate in a man's world from a man's perspective, and has invited women to step more into the masculine side of themselves than the feminine side of themselves, which contributes to this whole depolarization between the masculine and feminine within ourselves and then within partnership as well. Mm-hmm. And the other big piece to that is that the feminist movement largely does not acknowledge men's rights.
Now, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, there are a few different ways to sit and look like that. I mean, there's a lot of, complaining by women saying that, men have more power in the workplace, they receive more money than women do in the workplace, men have more rights than women do. However, if we sit and begin to peel back all of the layers behind the story, and we sit and look at, how are men treated and what rights do men have? Are they equal to rights that women have? Mm. And we could sit and even look at, I'll use the example of divorce and marriage and stuff too, and single parents with children. Much of the time, men do not have the same rights to their children that the mothers do. Mothers are automatically given, sole physical custody to their children, and men have to fight for the right for that.
I think it was like 90% of custody cases go to the woman's favor, or some sort of number. Don't quote me on that, folks. But I do notice, and one thing I don't like about modern day feminism, because feminism, I feel like what's really required, to get equal votes, equal rights, equal opportunities, and I think it's come a great way. But what it is right now is this like hybrid monster. And there's women tearing down other women for wearing high heels because apparently they're cooperating with the patriarchy and dressing the way that the man wants you to dress and all this. And like, I don't think that's feminism. By attacking other women for making choices that they want to make, it's like it's really this sick and twisted thing that's going on right now, and I don't think it's healthy for civilization.
It's really not. It's really not. And you brought up a good point as well with, women attacking women. And that's one piece of it. And women putting each other down, where it's like this, it's almost this really gross thing where women are saying, yes, I want to see women succeed. I want to see women in places of power. And then it's like underneath that, they're undermining each other. And and there's this whole and it drives me.
If I may interject, do you see that with men as well?
I tend not to see it as much with men as with women.
Okay.
Now, I mean, saying that you're not a feminist, especially if you type that somewhere in some comments in Facebook or YouTube or something, you'd probably be attacked.
You need to stay off social media.
Well, I know it's poisonous, but I've seen women make comments like that, right? And then you just get like 100 instant replies and just saying like, blah, 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 how can you do that? And then they're just tearing the woman down, like making fun of her. And I'm like, okay, you guys are feminists and you're tearing her down because she says she's not a feminist. Like, what does that say about your movement as a total? Like, what does it say about your movement's health and where its mindset is at? So it's frustrating, and it must be even more frustrating for you.
Yeah, I guess I would say I don't necessarily feel frustrated by it. I think it's really interesting perspective that people have, and a lot of what I see coming from women is anger and hate. And, this whole, power to the pussy type of thing, and I forget what the, hashtag Hillary Clinton thing was that people were saying, oh, I'm with nasty. and I was sitting there thinking, okay, so you're feminist, and you're hashtagging power to the pussy, and I'm with nasty. How does that even feel? To me, that does not feel good. It does not feel empowering. It does not feel loving. It does not feel welcoming. It does not feel supportive or empowering. aren't you putting yourself down by saying I'm with nasty? Like, you're calling another woman nasty and you're saying you're with her, so
Yeah, the rock I live under just seems so nice and warm and cozy right now.
Yes, and just to like dive into that a little bit further, it's like a lot of women have this impression that their power comes from their vaginas, basically. And the power doesn't come from their vaginas, and it just doesn't come from crushing other women or men a lot of times with their vaginas. Women's power comes from their breast and their heart, from the love within them. To me, that's where like true feminism is from that space of unconditional love.
And being a human and being a person first and foremost before you assign genitals to the situation. If you're a good person, for lack of a better term, I think that's more powerful than anything. And focusing on who you are as a human rather than focusing on breasts or whatever. And both men and women can have breasts. It's fine, but I used to have breasts, Brian. I think you might have had some too.
Yeah. In another past former life.
but it's people just miss out on the big picture. They're just so focused on these micro, things that they're not thinking about. Am I contributing and making society healthier? And they don't think about that shit. But I do know we're in a bit of a time crunch. So Brian, I'm going to pass the microphone, so to speak, over to you, because I've been dominating Amanda Patty's time here, and I feel like a dick. So, well, I don't, but you can ask questions if you want.
Oh, well, thank you. Actually, I just wanted to add, as far as the feminism thing, like, it seems like there's, a pendulum with many different things in life, particularly, our podcast, for one, being overly serious and then being overly goofy and immature, but specifically with feminism, it's gone from a very matriarchal society, and now it's very patriarchal, and it seems like the feminist movement is trying to swing the pendulum back, beyond that point of equilibrium, and it's going about the wrong way. Men and women are, we're equal, but we're not the same, and trying to accomplish the same things, one gender to the other, is maybe not, serving our best interest. So
that was very put together and coherent, Brian.
Thank you. I 51.
So there's one little piece I'd love to dive in
please.
Just kind of briefly ride that wave with, kind of that whole equilibrium and coming back into balance. And one of the biggest things I've seen is like, yes, there's this big surge about women stepping into their power and everything else. And, one of the biggest things that I've said is like, women have been doing a lot of work with themselves over the years to kind of raise up, the goddess and the feminine energy and everything. And within that, they've completely disregarded and forgotten about the male aspect. So to me, instead of, things swinging completely to the other side of the pendulum and this whole like goddess energy thing, it's about the masculine and feminine really coming together to work as one coherently and cohesively. And in order to do that, we as women can start to provide the space and support in a really loving and nurturing way for men to step into their own power.
I like it because it's working together, right? And what you see right now is this war, and it's feminists, or at least hardline feminists, versus now it's men's rights activists. And I've never seen this thing before. Like 10 years ago, neither of these things were really prominent, but now you see these two sides duking it out, and it's just like, guys, let's just all be friends, like chill out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was getting the visual of the medical symbol with the two snakes and the sword as you were talking. Just, being able to interweave the masculine and the feminine again.
Right.
So.
Brian's having visions again. It's time to stop this podcast.
The ayahuasca is kicking in. Oh, man. So, anyways, let's jump into our wrap up. Yeah.
Brian's just sad he doesn't have ayahuasca or peyote or whatever.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Uh,
So, Amanda, if you had to rescue 3 books or resources from a fire, what would they be?
Oh man, that's a really fantastic question.
They can
Oh,
be any topic, health, fitness, mindset, something that's helped you largely in life.
Children's books, comic books, whatever. I mean,
Yeah. Old issues of Playboy like me and Brian like to credit.
so one book I would say would be anything by Mantak Chia would be fantastic.
Mantak Chia? How do you spell that?
Mantak, I think it's Mantak maybe, and then Chia just like
Chia seed?
Chia.
or Chia Pet, right?
Oh, okay. All right. And what do they write about?
So I think the last book that I read had to do with multi-orgasmic male and the multi-orgasmic female.
Definitely
Awesome.
gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It takes sexuality to an entirely new level, as well as the potential for really deepening the connection that you share with your partner.
Okay. Beautiful.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other books coming to mind?
The Impersonal Life is coming to mind.
Yeah, okay, so that's 2 that I'm not familiar at all with.
Yeah, you're schooling us. Right?
Yeah,
I'm
for
starting
sure.
to feel like Brian over here.
I'm sorry, Claude.
it's okay. It's okay. What is that one about?
So it really invites you to sit and look at life in a different way, from a completely different perspective. To me, it's like a deep dive into the subconscious mind, and it really kind of screws with how we sit and think about things.
That sounds like
ayahuasca.
something I want to read. It's a journey, man.
For sure. Far out.
And the last one that comes to mind, if anything?
The last one that comes to mind, and it's just one that just happened to pop into my mind, and I think it's a great book for women in particular who are looking to kind of reclaim their personal power and, I don't know, like just really embrace themselves and the joy of life again, and that's Mama Gena's School of Womanly Arts.
Okay. That's 3 for 3, Amanda. We've been schooled.
In womanly arts? Oh, Brian.
You got nothing? Wow, Claude's speechless.
No, I just, it's like some fruit is so low hanging that you'd hurt your back bending over to pick it. So I'm just going to leave that be.
Oh, come on now.
Fair enough.
I love you, Brian.
Yeah, I love both of you. You guys are awesome.
My personalities, or are you talking to me and Amanda?
No comment.
Next question.
So is there a purchase, or I guess I should say, what purchase under $100 has most benefited you or your practice?
Oh, goodness. That's a really fantastic question as well. I like these little questions at the end here.
Yes, I would say they're canned questions, but I prefer flash frozen questions. So.
Yeah. I like how they're making me think and kind of think outside of the box a little bit.
I can only think about strangling Brian right now for saying flash frozen.
Yeah, I would say, in terms of a purchase under $100 that has really benefited me directly, and I guess you could say my practice indirectly, would have to be some of the medicinal mushrooms that I've purchased, like reishi.
Okay, so medicinal, not magical.
Right.
Okay.
Although, if you have enough cacao, if you decide you're going to have a shaman's dose of cacao, there's just a possibility to go ahead and experience a journey just from, raw chocolate.
I was not aware of that. I may
I'm
have to
off
give that
to
a
the store
shot.
to buy some chocolate right after this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like, typically I start my day, one of the things I do to start my day is have a warm herbal cacao tonic. And I usually do a really heaping tablespoon of it. And I notice that if I do it too many days in a row, in terms of these like really big shamanic doses, it's like, oh man, what did I just have?
Do you
There's a
use
dragon coming out of my coffee cup.
do you use a certain brand of cacao, or?
I've been using Divine Organics.
All right, and you just put a teaspoon of that in, or a tablespoon?
I've been doing a heaping tablespoon to like 32 ounces of liquid.
All right.
Beautiful.
And is that warm or cold?
I do it warm.
All right. Warm's probably better. Probably, yeah.
At least this time of year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you can make a smoothie out of it when it gets warmer, unless you like being cold when it's cold out,
No. No.
So, other than myself or Claude, who is the first person that comes to mind, or what is your definition of the optimum human?
So it would be somebody living or dead, or does it not matter?
Whoever,
not
whatever. It is free for you to decide.
Yeah, it's your world. We're just interviewing it,
Yep.
kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Sometimes.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's not necessarily a person that's coming to mind. And I'm just like sharing what's filtering down through me through my intuition and everything else. I'm just going to completely run with it, as woo-woo and as wacky as it may sound.
Cool.
I'm cool with that.
But to me, it's like when I hear the optimal human, it's more the feeling and sensation and I guess vision that I get is the collective human. That each and every one of us on this planet, and as the planet and everything on the planet, we're all here. It's this one interconnected, breathing organism.
That's the first time I've heard Donald Trump as the optimum human.
Well, he's the optimum human example of the wounded masculine. So there's an optimal human side to each.
Absolutely.
Damn, going deep. I like it.
Yeah.
It's, wounded. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, where can was that it, Brian, for the wrap ups?
I got one more. So,
He's got uno more.
Yes, uno.
Uno.
That would be one for you non-Spanish speakers.
Yeah. Get some culture, you plebs.
Yes. So Amanda, who would you want to throw under the bus and have on our podcast, and what would you want to ask them or hear them talk about?
Oh, that's a really fantastic question. There are so many people I would love to throw under the bus and help
Okay,
them.
you can vomit. You can vomit names.
Projectile.
Let me see. I would say, the first person that kind of comes to mind, and I have no idea why he's coming to mind in terms of like specifically bringing him onto your podcast. Or actually two. One would be Ronnie Landis. And I think it would be really interesting to see the three of you play off of each other.
Okay, I'm not familiar with Ronnie.
Yeah, he is an integrative nutrition specialist and a human behavioral specialist.
Yeah, he'd have a field day with us.
Oh, yeah. And I think the other person who would be really interesting to bring on would be Rich Litvin.
Okay, I'm not familiar. Yeah, we're just getting all kinds of schooled. Who is Rich Litvin?
Yeah, so Rich Litvin is one of the co-authors of the book The Prosperous Coach.
Okay.
So for any of the coaches out there who happen to be tuning in and listening, I definitely recommend checking out his work, reading The Prosperous Coach, and I would suggest bringing him on because his approach to coaching and client acquisition is very different than how a lot of people teach it out there, and he's one of these people who encourages you to get uncomfortable and be uncomfortable as a coach in order to dive deeply with your clients.
Okay, very cool.
Awesome. We'll put them on the hit list.
All right.
You make that sound way worse than it is. I mean, you know, we're not the greatest podcast in the world, but
we're better than the greatest.
We're not going to kill anyone.
No, you're putting yourself down, Brian.
Yes. So
no, we're a great podcast, Brian. And if somebody's listened this far, they probably think something similar. Maybe they just want to laugh a bit. But Amanda, where can people find out more about you?
One of the easiest, well, there are a couple of ways. One is via my website, which is amandaleepatti.com, and my name is spelled kind of funky. So Lee is spelled Leigh, Patti, Patti, as in ice cream. amandaleepatti.com. They can also find me on Facebook, on my personal page on Facebook, or on Instagram.
All right. And I believe there was some sort of, what was it, Brian?
Yeah, you've got a little offering for our listeners. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. So anybody who is interested in receiving my newsletter, and I do not spam you. I'm not one of these, like, let me send out 5 emails a day type of person.
Yeah, those are getting annoying. I think there's some sort of business strategy behind it, but it's definitely takes its toll.
Yeah, well, that is the business strategy behind it.
Just wear you down.
Wear you down, beat you down. You are going to pay attention to me, damn it. But anybody who is interested in receiving the occasional newsletter as well as awesome event updates, they can subscribe. And when they subscribe to the newsletter, they will receive a 3-video practice. It's called the Gratitude Practice. One simple practice that can change your life.
Beautiful.
Oh, awesome.
Now, speaking of events, I know real quick before we end here, I know you've got an event coming up this coming summer. What can you tell us about that real quick?
Yeah, so I am leading a retreat down in Playa Amarillo, Nicaragua. It is July 13th through 19th, and I'm doing it with my dear friend Shine Rilling. And while we're down there, we're going to dive into some really deep transformational coaching. We are including sustainable surfing for people who are interested in surfing, and those who aren't interested in surfing, there'll be plenty of time to relax on the beach. We're going to have a lot of plant walks and jungle hikes. And one of the most interesting and kind of heart-driven aspects of this retreat to me, and it's something that I plan on doing on all of my future retreats, is including a really humanitarian-based project. So this year's project, we will be making peace sticks with the local kids who happen to live in the Playa Amarillo area.
Oh, very cool.
Awesome. All right, and I believe that's all the time we have. So Amanda, thank you for coming on our show.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
Brian?
thank you guys so much for having me here.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, questions, requests to our listening audience before we sign off?
I guess no particular questions or anything. And if I were to part any words of wisdom, I would say be you. Give yourself permission to be yourself and really love you as you are for who you are.
Beautiful.
that's right, guys. Amanda Patti says, be you, so you better listen to her. No, I'm just messing with you. So, guys, everyone, thank you for listening. And we also have a newsletter. We actually don't email you at all, so we don't know whatever it is. But you get a free book when you sign up. So I just thought I'd self-plug there.
There you go.
TheOptimumHuman.com. Anyway, Amanda, thank you. It's been a blast. Brian, thank you for putting up with me.
Absolutely. Always a
putting
pleasure.
on you a bit. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm masochistic. What can I say?
I know you like it. That's why I do it, buddy.
All right, and on that note, thanks everybody for listening to our show.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.